all of you already know, this is the 12th session, so we've been together for a long time, and we've learned a lot about the Enneagram and about ourselves and about one another. I love to teach it and I love to talk about it, but at the end of the day, there is no way that I can adequately talk about any number as effectively and as efficiently and as honestly as they can talk about themselves. So one of the things I love to do in exploring Enneagram numbers is ask the same question to all 9 numbers and get to hear and share in the difference in their answers. And this panel is set up to do that. So we have all 9 numbers and they're going to answer 3 questions. And the first question is, Stephanie, we're going to start with you as a 1. What is the most important thing you've learned about yourself in the Enneagram work that you've done?
I assumed that everybody navigated the world the way I did, that you woke up in the morning and were worried that you could have done something different. And I thought everybody did that. And it was astonishing to me to realize that not everybody did that. And as I learned through the Enneagram, the different ways that people navigate the world, as it opened up a whole new world to me because I was able to understand other people better, have more tolerance and more patience, and at the end of the day, be a better friend not only to them but to myself. And I learned how to love myself better and to know that there were other ways to think through the day. And it's incredible.
Thank you. One of the things that I talked about in the first session with you guys is the fact that whatever you leave with after this whole process, you'll have more compassion for everybody else. And that's a perfect way for us to start talking about where that compassion comes from. Okay, Christopher is a 2.
I'd just echo that I believe for me it's really all about learning to love myself and learning to love others in a more full and complete way. It amazed me. I never realized how much of my life was on autopilot, how I was just kind of going through the day, reacting to the same situations the same way over and over and over again. And for me, the Enneagram has been something that's kind of been a wake-up call. It's kind of been this thing that has let me be able to see myself and think, you're not really thinking in this situation. You're not really acting in ways that are appropriate to what is happening here. And so how can you then not then go on the spiraling cycle of shame and guilt, which might be what I would normally then do, but then learn to give myself grace and love in that instance, and then also be able to be aware of the way that everyone else is operating in different cycles like that too, and be able to then have ability to extend them grace and love as well.
I think for me as a 3, somebody who is driven and in some ways deceitful with people, someone that wants to present themselves as successful and derives their self-image from the appearance of success. One of the things that I am amazed by is that that's possible to do in the area of spirituality. That for me, the currency of success was how spiritual am I, that it wasn't about money, it wasn't about fame, it wasn't about that, it was that could be applied in the world of spirituality, and am I a saint, or do I appear like one? And just that the 3 energy can be put out there in so many different ways and take so many different forms. And I agree with everybody else on this one point, this notion of compassion. That for me, the development of waking up in my inner observer now, who in my own head is kinder, it's gentled itself toward me.
And the more gentle you are with yourself, the more gentle you are with everybody else. And that kind of has to come in that order. And the Enneagram really helps you with that. Once you can give yourself some grace, then you can give grace to everybody else. But it's hard to offer grace to yourself when you're trapped in those patterns that they talked about, where everything's just cycling down with the same predictable pattern, habitual behavior that you always have.
I think as a 4, I would say if my pattern was kind of, I was always seeking to be authentic. I was either putting all that energy on the external side of things and making my world beautiful, or my how I looked beautiful, or have everything out here, the relationship was intense, and I would do that to the point of jeopardizing the actual connection itself. Or I would go to internal and try to make the stuff inside of me authentic and true, to the jeopardy, again, of my connectedness to other people in the world. And so I felt like, I think I felt like I was, and still do, flip-flop between the two, of having authenticity out here or authenticity in here, both times losing out on the real connection. And I mean, I guess I feel like there's this third way or something. It's of, if I'm not needing that over here, or if I'm not needing it in here, and I'm just okay knowing that I'm held up in God, and basically that I can almost let go of both of those things, and then it all ends up being authentic in the end. But I couldn't get there. I couldn't get there before. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, makes a lot of sense. Okay, David, 5.
When I woke up, I think I finally had the freedom to recognize that I had some sort of value beyond my own competence or incompetence. And so I could have good days and bad days, and my competence wasn't wrapped up in all of that. I could finally realize all the fear that was in that incompetence, and that I could kind of just rest in that, and be okay with being afraid, and have some peace in that I was a beloved child of God. I was not a competent child of God or an incompetent child of God.
Really good way to acknowledge that we've moved into another triad now here, and what we have is the fear triad with 5, 6, and 7. So the conversation automatically changes a little bit into how to address what's at the core of many of the feelings that they have.
I think as a 6, the greatest thing that I learned through the Enneagram was that it is possible to live a life that's more peaceful, and that is not filled with anxiety at a level 10 every day. I also didn't realize that everybody didn't go through life feeling that way. So I think just the freedom that I now see as possible from all of that anxiety, and that all the worst case scenarios that I'm looking for rarely, if ever, happen, has been wonderful. And I think just realizing how much I was looking to external sources, authority figures, to make me feel okay about the world and myself. Just the realization that nobody has all the answers, and that really the peace for me is going to come from looking within, and looking to God as I understand God, and the ways that God is speaking to me. That's solid ground. It's not outside of me. It's within me.
Okay, so I'm a 7, and I think the thing that was most important for me was learning that I'm a glutton. I create options. I don't just create options A, B, and C. I create options A, B, C, D, E, F, and you go all the way to the Z's. So, and that's a good thing in lots of times, but it also has its downside. I was having a conversation recently with some of my addict friends, talking about addictions, and when it came my turn to talk about it, I said, well, I've never had a problem with alcohol and drugs and those kind of things, but I have 173 iPhone apps. So it's like more, no matter what you're talking about. And so what I did was to get a chalkboard, and on that chalkboard, as I enter into my front door every day, I have about 5 little things I'll remind myself, and at the very top is less is more.
I just want to respond to that too by saying, if you're going to do this work in a holistic way, and if it's going to really be helpful to you, then you're going to need totems. And we've talked about that before, but you need to remember that you're going to have some things like the chalkboard, like reminders that help you remember who you are beneath all of this personality that's covering up your essence. Okay, Joey?
As an 8, I think definitely what I learned that really has been helpful going forward. 8s, I thought I was doing pretty well. I still do. I think, we kind of go through life and we don't realize and always are shocked when we rub people the wrong way or walk over them, because that's not our intention. And then on going further, feel like, since we didn't mean to, other people shouldn't be hurt by that. So what was helpful for me as an 8 was to know about myself that I want you to give me the facts, the straight facts. If you sugarcoat it or if you try to be sweet, I'm automatically, my trust is going to kick in, and I'm going to probably not trust you anyway. So since that's how I see the world, that's how I, as an 8, give information to everybody. I am straightforward, and I don't cut corners, and I don't make it nice. And realizing that most of the world actually does not want to receive information that way has been huge for me as an 8.
It's great to get to be the 9 and get to go last, because we love to merge, and I could just say ditto to everybody else. But I think there are 2 things in particular that the Enneagram has helped me with personally. And the first is, as 9s, we so want to avoid conflict. We will do just about anything to avoid conflict. And the Enneagram has taught me, first of all, that avoiding conflict causes more conflict. And secondly, it has given me the tools in learning how to be in a conflictual situation with other persons, because I am much more aware of what motivates them and their personality and their responses to life situations. And so I'm not as afraid of being in a conflictual situation with other people because of my understanding of their Enneagram number. The second thing that has really helped me in my number as a 9 is to understand that, and I'm sure Suzanne will love this, that later is not a point in time. We as 9s love to procrastinate. We love to put things off until another time. Sometimes the inertia of our life causes us to just be totally and completely at rest. So understanding that the times that I do that and say, I'll get to it later, or I'll think about it later, or I'll handle that situation later, is not a point in time, and most often is ineffective in really accomplishing what I need to accomplish, what I want to accomplish. So those 2 things have helped me greatly in Enneagram work.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you. That was kind of a gentle warm-up question. So now we're going to go with a question that takes you to a different place, and then you'll be able to take everybody else to a different place with your attention to this question. And it is, Stephanie, we'll start with you again. How do you handle betrayal?
I assume it's my fault because I did everything wrong. And what can I replay it all in my head and try to figure out what I did wrong and how I can do it better and how I can try to do everything I can to mend the relationship or whatever it is that's happened. But my knee-jerk is to assume that it was everything that I did wrong. And with Enneagram knowledge, I now can process that through a different filter in my head and know that I'm doing the best I can every day and that I'm okay. And sometimes stuff like that just happens and it's all right. And again, as we've all seemed to talk about, that I have more tolerance for my own self. Because lots of days I didn't like myself because I was doing all these things wrong all the time. And it's just so much more peaceful. And to be in my heart, in my head, more peaceful is just the best. That's where it's really awesome to have this knowledge that I would spend hours, I would wake up in the middle of the night and make lists about how I could do something different or better. And I don't do that anymore. So
I love that. I love that you don't do that anymore.
me too, me too.
All right, Christopher.
I think about an experience I had a few months ago when I was actually meeting with someone who I had felt betrayed by. And we met in this restaurant. And I thought I was really handling it incredibly well in terms of this conversation that we were having to kind of address the issue of the betrayal. And then as we kind of were wrapping up that conversation, without even thinking, talking about going into autopilot, I was noticing I found myself picking up napkins off of the ground and taking them to the trash can. I thought, why am I doing this? You know, this is, but it was totally in my stress going deeper and deeper into my number. As a 2, I'm finding things that I need to help these people. And then even if it's just taking the napkin off the ground, the trash that's on the floor, and putting it away. And so I think that's part of how I see in my stress how I'd handle betrayal. But I think more core to my number as a 2, there's going to be, in some sense, shock because, well, I've been doing all these things to help you. I've been so incredibly loyal. So how dare you betray me? But I think right underneath that is this feeling, but I know I was doing all those things because I don't really have a whole lot of internal sense of worth. And so, of course, this ended up happening. And so I think those are the initial struggles that I would always feel. And now it's able to learn for myself how to think more objectively about those experiences and those feelings and not be totally carried away, not over-identify my worth in any one experience or in any one relationship.
I think for me as a 3 that the first thing I experience is rage. And part of that is, anger at people because they saw through, or I experienced being seen beneath the exterior of success. And, so I really go through this period of rage. And then that's followed by grief, this sense of I failed to maintain the facade of success in some way. And so I feel like a failure, become very self-condemning in the process. Like, why couldn't I maintain this all the way through to the end? And then almost always it's reframing the narrative, which is how do I take this quote-unquote failure and turn it into a success story of how I learned something spiritually that just makes me wonderful, right? And so reframing the narrative instead of just saying, this was a failure, and that's all right. It's okay, because without having to then say, and isn't it wonderful because I'm now better spiritually than I've ever been before, so.
It's very interesting because what you want is for people to love you for who you are and not for what you do. And when you reframe the narrative, then you end up in the same place of encouraging people to love you for what you do and not for who you are. Because without the failure and the admitted failure, then you don't ever get to hear back that it doesn't matter because I love you for all these other reasons.
I think my first reaction, I guess, would be hurt, and I think I would remove myself entirely. It would feel like a rejection of me entirely, and so I would be like, you're not going to get any of it now. You get nothing. But then I think after a while of that, then I would want the deep connection back, and so I would go after it in probably an inappropriate way. I would probably go too far with going after it. And I think that's an older pattern. I think I've gotten better at that. I think you said one time, like, you can judge your health by how often you get offended. Mm-hmm. And I think you could almost say you can judge your health by how often you feel betrayed. Mm-hmm. They can feel similar sometimes. And and also I feel like there's a real growth curve there for me. I feel like the places where I feel betrayed or I feel offended are the places where I can go deeper with myself and with my art. And it's almost like the more I can hang in there and not remove myself, the more I'm going to really learn something that's valuable. I mean, generally, if I feel betrayed by someone, it's because they have something to offer me that's maybe better than the person that never makes me feel betrayed.
That's good. Thanks.
So we're in the withdrawing stance now, and Elizabeth began by saying how she would basically withdraw from the relationship, and I would do the same thing. I don't need you, so I don't have needs. And I would not only withdraw from that individual who betrayed me, but perhaps just withdraw in general for a while. And there's a good chance that I might not return to that relationship. Fives don't generally have a high need for them, and you know, and so I think, but I would probably say, what you missed out on this. You had your chance and you blew it because now you don't get my information.
I win.
Yeah, I win, you lose, and you may never know it, but I get the satisfaction of sort of knowing it. That's probably really unhealthy, but.
So how much of that it just stays in your head? Does betrayal ever get to your heart?
It would have to be someone who I really let in.
Okay.
Yeah. It matters. It would matter dramatically to the point of how far did I let that person in. It would get to my heart if I really let them in. Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Patty.
Well, what I want most in the world is to feel safe. So the day I'm betrayed is a really, really bad day. And I think sixes have a tendency, when we're not doing well, to put people into one of two categories. You're with me, you're either for me or you're against me, and there isn't anything in between. And so that would put that person squarely in the you're against me, and so I probably wouldn't return to those relationships either. You know, I think there's what happens to you, the betrayal, and then there's the meaning that you assign to what happens to you. And unfortunately, I think as a six, I'm looking for the worst case scenario. So that's, that just sort of fulfills that. See, it has happened. So it's probably how I would deal with it.
Okay, betrayal. I face it boldly and confidently with denial.
That's perfect.
But seriously, it's not deliberate denial. It's really more like inability to see it, because Suzanne always says that we sevens only experience half the world. We don't experience. We love the happy stuff and the up stuff, but we really kind of don't even want to see that downside of things. And so, in fact, I was talking with Lenny Jo recently, and I was, because this question has come up before, and so I was asking her about this, and she says, well, and I was saying, I don't think anybody has betrayed me. And she said, well, what about your brother who did that thing to you 3 years ago, and you haven't spoken to him since? And I literally said to her, I don't remember what it was.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating. Thank you.
Well, for eights, we expect that you're going to betray us. So on the surface, a betrayal is exactly what we were basically waiting for. Now, with Enneagram work, we bring up eights, we bring up those feelings that we don't really deal with much. Instead of just always doing and always thinking about what we're doing, we actually make real connections with people and give up some of our own vulnerability. And so betrayal then is very difficult for eights. I think who are doing work. I think when you're not doing much work, Enneagram-wise, it's what's expected and it rolls off of you. But when you, as an eight, really start doing some Enneagram work, then it hurts.
Thank you. I have no doubt that the most misunderstood number on the Enneagram is 8s. I will stand by that always. Okay?
I believe we nines have a threefold response to betrayal because we're in the anger triad, gut triad. Our first response is anger. And I know I do get very angry with people who betray me. But you're not going to necessarily see the anger. The second step in that anger for me is that it's passive aggressive, and so I might try to find some way to let you know that I'm angry or let you know that you've betrayed me, but it's never going to be direct. It's going to be in some kind of a indirect passive aggressive form. And the third part of it, because nines need to know and hear that their presence matters, is that when somebody has betrayed us, it feels, well, sure, my presence didn't matter enough for them to really get to know me, to really like me, to really see what a well-rounded person I might be. So of course they betrayed me. And the end result of all of that is they're out of my life from that point on. There's not an effort, there would not be an effort on my part to go back to try to reconcile with those persons or to try to understand why they betrayed me or any of that. If I were to encounter that person somewhere down the line, it would be polite, and that's all. It never could go back to what it was in the beginning.
One really important thing I want to add to that is, as you all know, I'm married to him, so I'm there when there's a betrayal. And when he talked about the first step, at first he would get very angry. I've never seen the very angry. He doesn't even let me in until the second step. So it's a real important piece to understand about nines, because you don't see their anger. You sometimes experience it. But when you experience anger in a passive-aggressive way, you respond to it kind of passively because it was passive energy coming to you. And so when he talks about the fact that you wouldn't know that he's very angry, that includes everybody. All right, thank you all. Here's the third question. Stephanie, what do you wish people knew about you in your number, or what do you wish people knew about ones?
I think the consistent theme when I answer Suzanne's questions that I really just wish that everybody knew how innately critical I was just by my nature of my own self. Not of you, not of anything else, but just of my own self. That I wake up in the morning, used to, way better now, but thinking of all the things that I should do differently, could do differently, ought to have done differently. And that's the baseline for me. So it would be nice if other people just knew that. I think with my relationship with my spouse, it was a shock to him to know that that's where I came from. And so then when he says something that is challenging or critical to me, he doesn't know that I'm already amped up here, and he just amps it up higher. So that would be a wonderful thing for everybody to know. But so I think that's probably the most important. And that what was also a shock to me is that I thought I was thinking through everything all the time, and that's my repressed bit, and that I really need to take some time away and not react immediately, and that I always make better decisions than that. And that's not what folks are prone to want. They want an answer right then. And it's way better for everybody involved for me to back off, think about it, and come back later. And that's not always easy.
Thank you. Christopher, what do you want folks to know about twos?
Because as a two, we kind of tend to just exhale encouragement and positivity and warm things towards other people. I find it really challenging when I really do want to say, no, this relationship matters. You are important in my life. I get the sense oftentimes other people looking at me and saying, yeah, and you've probably said that to 2,000 other people in the course of your day. And so it's really sometimes just guts me when I want to say, but no, I truly, genuinely about you, this isn't all my two personality here, but this really is me wanting to let you know that you're one of the most core important people in my life, not feeling like that's ever able to fully connect with people because they're so used to just kind of the way I am in the world being that towards everybody.
Thank you. I believe you when you tell me.
As a 3, I think what's hard is, and what I would like other people to know, is that there's a big gap between being self-conscious and being self-aware. That it's exhausting to always be thinking, how am I coming off, you know? And it's not self-awareness, it's self-conscious. You know, you're very sensitive to everything in the environment. How am I coming, even just sitting here, you know, I was sort of laughing to myself thinking, okay, are my legs crossed right? And you know, how's this purple doing? And so you know, it is exhausting, and that, and I think secondly, that it's very lonely. I think that you know, you seek to be put on a pedestal. You know, like, I want to be on a pedestal because then I'll be loved. But you get on a pedestal, and guess what? You're lonelier than you were before. I mean, you know, it's a sort of a terrible kind of paradox that you think, okay, if I get on a pedestal, I'm finally going to be loved and part of the community that I've always longed for. But then you get put on the pedestal and you realize, oh man, I'm lonelier than when I started, you know, because I've set myself apart as special and better. And so I think, you know, just in short, is that for me, wanting to be successful was wanting to be loved and confusing the two. And so the journey for me is the movement from self-consciousness to being self-aware and trying to stop credentializing and allow myself to just be part of the world rather than, you know, standing out where the loneliness lives.
Thank you.
I think it's that I'm always, all day long seeking deep connections and vulnerability and engagement with people all day long. And I want to give that to you, and I want you to give it right back to me. And if you don't give it right back to me, then I feel like a failure and that it's not going anywhere and there's nothing there. So I will do inappropriate things, flashy things, offensive things, aggressive things to try to get you to come to me. And then I lose you, you know, every time. And so the journey for me is to drop that little tap dance and know that you'll come to me when you come to me. But that's exhausting. I mean, I'm doing that all day long, and to just drop that is the journey. So I guess what do I want people to know? I want them to know that if a forest standing in front of you tap dancing or being aggressive or making you scared or engulfing you in their stuff, they just want you so bad. They want your love so bad.
Thank you. David?
You know, 5s are oftentimes they're the awkward people you meet. They might have an awkward, halting way of speaking. And that comes from maybe not feeling comfortable in the world. And so knowing that 5s are uncomfortable in the world, and knowing that the way they share information is a way to reach out to you in relationship and feel comfortable with you, especially maybe at the beginning stages of a relationship. And maybe giving them grace in that and sitting with them in the information and realizing that it can be a segue into real relationship, that information can become knowledge, the knowledge can become wisdom, and it can be transformational for you. It just takes maybe a little patience and being able to go with them. So.
Thank you. Patty?
I think I would want people to understand more about the worst case scenarios when you're in a relationship with a 6 and they're doing the worst case scenario, thinking that the worst thing you can do is downplay that and act like those things aren't real, because they're very real for a 6. And I just had a coworker come up to me yesterday who was in one of your classes, Suzanne, and it was just a life changer for her to realize that her daughter, who was a 6, who was doing this, that the thing she needed to do was hear her out and say, oh, okay, well, then what? Then what? Then what would we do? And that has just transformed their relationship because she's able to support her in that way. So I think I would say that. And then I would say that 6s need to be reminded of past successes. We need to be reminded that those bad things don't happen, because we forget. We're very self-forgetting. And I don't know if this is me or if this happens to other 6s, but I'm amazed in the workplace. Oftentimes my peers and leaders don't see me as insecure as I really am. And so I don't think it ever occurs to them that I need to be reminded of those things. So I just think if you know a 6 and you love a 6, that would be a great gift to them, to hear out their questions, be patient with their questions and their anxiety, and remind them of their past successes.
Thank you.
So, what would I want others to know about me as a 7 and about 7s? I was talking about the chalkboard a little bit ago, and the second bullet on that chalkboard is embrace boredom. Now, the reason I put that there, well, what's the opposite of boredom? It's fun, and we 7s want to have fun all the time. And that's very much a part of our being. But what I would want you to understand is that just because we're doing that doesn't mean we don't care and think deeply about things that matter. I truly want to make the world a better place and not just have a good time.
I think as an 8, what I would definitely want other people to know about me is, and this is going to sound off-putting, but I'm an 8, so, is that I'm not thinking about you in the way that you're thinking about me. And that's not meant to be rude. It doesn't make me egotistical or narcissistic. It means that I put my energy into doing and into making things better and greater. And that's not people. I love working with people. I love infusing my energy into people and to events. I am floored time and time and time again when I find out that people have this dislike of me, and I didn't even really know who they were. We've been in this room in the Micah Center before, and Suzanne was trying to find a word for the self-confidence of 8s. I say that 8s have they're self-confident in the truest sense of the word, because they maintain that illusion of control. We maintain that illusion of control, I think, probably better than anybody. We're used to controlling things. Keep in mind, it's things. We don't want to control you. We just don't want you to control us. And someone offered the word egregious self-confidence, and I almost came undone, because I don't even understand how self-confidence could be egregious and offensive to someone else. But again, that is the journey of 8s, and realizing that. So if I could just have, put one thing out there, it's that we really we're not bad, mean people. We're just busy making the world a better place, and we don't stop to think about your feelings.
I love it when you call me Mom.
We 9s are so gifted at merging with other people. People don't think that we have our own needs, our own desires, our own wants, and that we don't have our own preferences about different things, because we are so capable of seeing two sides of everything. But 9s, in their own life experience, have things that they want and things that they have an opinion about two sides of an issue, one of which they prefer to another, although they're able to emerge. So we have wants and we have things that we want to do and we have preferences. We're just so very gifted at merging with other people. Most people don't realize and know that we have those. And the only way you would know is to really live with us and work with us to try to draw it out of us in the process, because we're not naturally just going to share that with you and naturally going to tell you that. The other thing I think is important is that while 9s don't believe their presence matters in the big scheme of things and to the world and to a lot of other people, to ourselves we believe that we matter. Whether people see that, realize that, or know that, we believe in our own selves that we matter in some way, shape, and form. And I don't think people understand that about us as well.
Thank you. Okay, some of these people have answered these questions for me before over the last 5 or 7 years. And for some of them, their answers have changed. So the challenge that I have for you is, these are 3 really good questions for you to ask yourself on a regular basis. And if the answers never get deeper, if they never have something added to them, then you need to work a little harder. Because the process is to learn to handle betrayal in a different way. And the process is to learn more about yourself so that you have new things that you wish people knew about your number. Not all the same thing. And you might add that on, but there needs to be a growing edge to all of this, because if we don't have that, then we're no longer on the journey, and the gift of the Enneagram is the journey, not knowing your number. That's just the baseline. The journey is about answering these kinds of things. And so as we do Enneagram work together in this community, the answers for some of these folks about how they handle betrayal has changed quite a bit. One person on the panel at one point said, when somebody betrays me, that's it. And that was their answer. And that person had a lot more to say today. So I want you to be aware of that. And I want you to be aware that there are new things for you to learn that would be something you would share if I asked you the first question again, or if I was in your world and I could ask you the first question again, and that was, what's the most important thing you've learned about yourself in Enneagram work? And I would love for all of you to add this month and ask yourself on the first of every month, what's the most important thing I learned about myself using the Enneagram this month? So that it's an ongoing learning and we don't stop short of all that this wisdom has to offer us. I love each one of you, and I'm so grateful for your willingness to be here and be part of this. And I know that what you shared will be helpful to all the people who hear it and to the people who heard it today. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I wanted you to say, that's a wrap.